Good morning, everyone. Oh, come on, we could do better than that. Good morning, everyone. All right, that's wonderful. I'm so excited. Every day I consider it a blessing to still be here. I always say, sadly, that there's a lot of folks that had plans for today that sadly didn't wake up. And so it's important every day that we live with purpose, that we live intentionally. Every day we're blessed with 86,400 seconds in a day, and that'll expire at midnight. So what do we choose to do with that time? Well, I'll tell you today, we're all choosing to be impactful because I promise you that today, if you're open to it, you're going to learn something. You're going to get an additional nugget of wisdom that's going to help you serve others better. It's going to help you make an impact, maybe in your personal life, maybe professionally. But that's living intentionally. And that's what I choose to do every day. I want to live with purpose. I want to make sure that I'm making a difference, that I lift where I stand. And so it's such an honor to be with you this morning to share some perspective on what we're doing at the Sheriff's Office, and more broadly, just to commend everyone for such an important convening in this conference. To Executive Director Robinson and her team, you all have done a fantastic job putting this together, so commend you and Harris County Public Health and the Violence Prevention Services. Let's give them a round of applause as well. When we think about violence, so much is often focused on the after effects. That's what becomes more visible. That's what captures most of the headlines. And obviously that's important. And I know there's a lot of discussion about that, and there's a lot of strategies that we need to continue to deploy to make sure that we're responding as effectively as possible. But I think it's also just as important to also focus on the prevention side of things. What else can be done? What is being done? What's working? What may not be working? What needs to be tweaked? And all of you that are here today bring incredible perspective to that discussion, whether you're a practitioner, whether you're a thought leader, a community leader, somebody that works in the violence prevention space. We all have something to add, and I think that it's critically important that we convene like this so that we can share thoughts and ideas and learn about best practices and learn about what's working. Because it's incredibly important for us to be looking towards the future as well to see what else can be done. How can we prevent crime from even happening, violence from happening? How can we disrupt some of the crime patterns that we see? And I tell you, even from a law enforcement police executive, that enforcement isn't the only answer. Enforcement is just one piece of it, but just as important is the intervention and prevention that comes on the front end. What I like to refer as the left of boom, kind of before the violence itself happens. And there's a lot of things that can be done. One of the things we're most excited about is to partner with the Harris County Public Health with the HEART program. I know our project manager, Alex Furtado, is somewhere here in the audience. I want to thank him for leading our efforts on our side. But the Holistic Assistance Response Teams are a multidisciplinary approach to addressing violence prevention. Looking at some recent numbers, in fact, just got an updated number that we've already been able to divert more than 700 calls within the pilot program. That's, since just March of 2022. These are calls that would have otherwise gone directly to law enforcement. And I think, again, it's important to understand that law enforcement can't do it all. We need the community's approach. We need other approaches. And through this process, we dispatch 911 directly. It's, again, an interdisciplinary team of first responders that are trained in behavioral health and on-scene medical assistance. So they're able to approach and address cases where they're connecting individuals to services, for example. Some of the numbers that are now dated, but at the time when we had over 500 calls, over 300 vulnerable residents were connected to much-needed services. And that's a plus, that's a positive outcome. And we respond to a number of different types of calls, or they respond to a number of different calls, including welfare checks, maybe suspicious persons, maybe other welfare checks, things like that may not necessarily require a law enforcement response. And for us, we see that as a plus. It's only a pilot program. It's in the Cypress Station part in far north Harris County. But we're working closely with the director and her team to see how else we could expand and see where there's additional opportunities for that. But we're definitely seeing fruits of that wonderful effort, and we look forward to seeing more of that. Again, an evidence-based approach, forward-thinking, innovative, and that's what we're about. It helps to deal with individuals that may be suffering from homelessness, behavioral health issues, or non-emergency health and social welfare. So again, it launched in March of this year, and we've already seen great success, and so we look forward to more to come. Also in 2017, we launched our core program, which is Clinician and Officer Remote Evaluation. Again, partnering with another Harris County partner, Harris Center. We were able to equip our deputies with computer tablets. So whenever, again, from the point of dispatch, whenever we were responding to a crisis type call where somebody maybe was in crisis, we now can deploy a deputy with a computer tablet that can connect to a mental health clinician in real time and be able to better triage and assess from the scene what's going on with that individual in crisis. And again, that's critical because, again, we're putting more of a public health lens instead of just a criminal justice approach to everything. And again, we're seeing tremendous success. We've been able to work with a lot of regional agencies now where we've been able to provide the training, equip them with the tablets, working again in conjunction with our partners. And again, great success because we're able to better address what's going on, connect them to much needed services, find out if that person may be going through a bipolar type of scenario or other mental health crisis, where in the past, law enforcement would have most likely had very little options, most likely ended up putting them in jail for something. And so again, this approach is working. It's one we're very excited, and again, it's an evidence approach that it's an award-winning program as well, where a lot of agencies come from around the country to see how we're doing it here in Harris County. Another program that we're very excited, and I'll just touch on a little bit. I know I'll be followed next by Commissioner Garcia, but his Employed to Empower program, another award-winning program as well. We partner with his office and his leadership, and then connect with Career and Recovery Services as well. And it's an innovative program that helps individuals impacted through homelessness to enter or return back to the workforce by providing them with low barrier employment. They get connected to social services. They're able to start transitioning from homelessness, where they get a wage. They go out and work on different service projects, and we're involved with that to make sure that we're being supportive and helping lift these individuals up, and we've seen tremendous success. And again, I want to commend Commissioner Garcia for his leadership in crime prevention strategies within the Sheriff's Office and beyond, and so I know he'll be following up soon. When I first became sheriff in 2016 and I formally took office in 2017, one of the first data points that I learned about was the number of children in Harris County that are impacted by, that have a parent that's incarcerated. And that's something that really touched my heart. My father had once been incarcerated, nothing too serious, but he had been incarcerated. My father wasn't able to read and write. And so I wanted to make sure that other children coming up in our community had good opportunities. I was appalled to learn that over 90,000 children in our community every single year have a parent that's incarcerated in our jail as we speak, every year. Of those, about 43,000 are middle school students. And I think that's a very critical time because that's where you start seeing the onset of depression, you start seeing other things start creeping in, bullying, other things happen. And so one of the things we did was we were able to collaborate with Cherish Our Children, Inc., with a program, their program called GEMS, which stands for gaining empowerment in middle school. And so middle school, as we know, can be one of the most challenging periods in a kid's life. And having a parent in prison or jail, and life can become overwhelming. So we wanted to make sure that we were connecting to those middle school students where we could provide mentorship, structure, other type of support programs to them and their families, and it's worked out tremendously. We're going to continue to support that program because we really want to make a difference and try to, again, stem the tide of those. We're all familiar with dismantling the cradle-to-prison pipeline. That's always something that I've been very interested in. And it's not only looking about our current population right now that's in jail, but also looking towards the future as well. I think as leaders, it's important for us to always keep an eye towards the future as well. And sometimes we may be planting trees that will give shade that we may never get to experience. But we're planting those seeds that will give rise to trees that will benefit someone else in future years. And if we can help dismantle some of that pipeline early on, then that's important. So we're trying to also make sure that we're keeping an eye towards our children so that they don't become involved in the criminal justice system. You know, and I think it's important as well when we're thinking about violence prevention to also understand a little bit of who may end up becoming involved in the criminal justice system. I was looking briefly at some of our numbers just today. As we speak, we have 9,975 individuals that are incarcerated in our jail. Of those, 1,100 of them are women. 1,100 women in our jail. It's the fastest growing population in the country when it comes to imprisonment. Interestingly enough, another data point that we received is that 805 individuals that are currently incarcerated as we speak have been involved in the foster care system. So what are we doing as a community to help intervene in that system to see how we can improve those outcomes so that those individuals don't end up becoming involved in the criminal justice system? That's a lot, 800. That's about 8% of our population. 2,849, or 29%, are currently on psychotropic medications in our jail. You know, it's a very costly effort when, you know, with those medications, and again, individuals that have some serious mental health issues that are incarcerated. We also, of that population, which is 80% of our population, almost 8,000 of them have been previously diagnosed with major mental illness or were patients with Harris Center or were on prescribed psychotropic medication. So that's a large population. And I always say that in the modern era of law enforcement, we're in the front lines of three important issues: mental illness, addiction, and poverty. Mental illness, addiction, and poverty. And while law enforcement can and should maybe have a role in some of that, we should not be in the front lines of that. I think too much is criminalized. Too much that we approach it simply through the singular lens of a criminal justice system. I think it's important to divert, as I've been talking about, and look at things through some of the public health lens and seeing what else can we be doing? How can we be smarter? How can we change these outcomes? And that's something I've always been committed to do. And there's a lot of other things that we've done because prevention works, intervention works. When I was a city councilman prior to being sheriff, I served on city council with Mayor Parker. I was chair of the public safety committee, and there, working closely with other leaders like Chief Lee, that's now in our agency, we were able to help advance and champion the Houston Recovery Center that's still in place today, where at the time we were realizing that we were we were arresting about 12 to 15,000 people per year for public intoxication. And we wanted to see how we could divert those individuals. So now we have an approach where individuals that are arrested for public intoxication, or not arrested, detained. I'm not talking about driving while intoxicated, but just out in public intoxicated. It could be a homeless veteran, it could be a college student, it could be anyone that's has a drinking issue. Now we're able to divert them and get them the help that they need. And so that's something that's very critical. The program's really working, and so we're very excited. So wanted to just give you a summary of some of the things that we're doing as far as being a part of a holistic approach. So want to commend Harris County Public Health for being leaders in this, and we're glad to be a partner. I commend all of you for your role in this space, and I think the best is yet to come. I think it's very promising what's happening here in Harris County. We are a model. We can continue to be a model and look forward to sharing in that work with you. And it's such an honor to be able to introduce the next presenter as well. He'll be joining us virtually. I believe he's on deck already. A good friend and mentor of mine, Commissioner Adrian Garcia, a former sheriff, a former councilman, and also a former Houston police officer. So he knows this space very intimately. We've talked about prevention. He walks the walk and talks the talk as well, not only believing it, but making sure that he's advocating for these programs. Not able to join us here in person. They have a very important meeting in Commissioner's Court this meeting. Without further ado, please give a round of applause for Commissioner Adrian Garcia.
Thank you, Sheriff. And I hope everyone can hear me and see me well. But please, let's give another round of applause for our phenomenal Sheriff, Sheriff Ed Gonzalez. Well deserved. And thank you all. It's an honor to be with you this morning, although I would much rather be with you in person. But thanks to technology, we can be at two places almost at the same time. But with that, I want to just applaud the Public Health Department for their leadership in bringing this inaugural Violence Prevention Conference to Harris County. And I want to welcome everyone who may not be from Harris County. I want to welcome you here and hope that your time with the conference will be informative and productive. But the conference really brings together everything I am very, very passionate about. And that I have made my life's work since being in public service, approaching public safety in a holistic manner. I spent more than 2 decades with the Houston Police Department working alongside then Sergeant Gonzalez, and then served on Houston City Council, also working on public safety as the chair of the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee. And then I served previously as the sheriff of Harris County. And all this time, it was focusing on how to truly and effectively prevent violence from occurring. These experiences are now what I bring to Commissioner's Court. And they've taught me that in order to stop violence, we have to work to address the underlying social, economic, and health issues. As an officer, I went to the mental health call. I was dispatched to them and recognized that individuals at these scenes didn't need to go to jail, they needed help. I've also seen the homeless, poor, mentally ill, and disabled arrested, not because they were truly bad people, but because someone else exploited their vulnerabilities. As sheriff, these realities inspired me to rethink incarceration and create programs to help reduce recidivism. We moved to house arrest for some low-level nonviolent offenders. We created a program called Mentoring Moms to help pregnant inmates or new moms access recovery services, shelter, and the support that they needed. I worked hard to address human trafficking by having my jail staff trained so that they could better understand and recognize victims of human trafficking within the walls of the Harris County jail system. And I also worked to require strong partnerships involving some of your organizations and agencies, partnerships that truly work to provide better results for us and continue to do so today. I've taken these experiences and lessons with me to Commissioner's Court, and in 2019, I became Commissioner of Precinct 2, which represents the eastern portion of Harris County. Our precinct has had the highest rate of uninsured and chronic disease. Our residents faced high rates of food insecurity and unemployment. And that's why my team got to work to increase access to health services, including bringing access to health smart pods to 2 of our community centers. These mobile health clinics are in partnership with the Baylor College of Medicine, one of the premier partners of the esteemed Texas Medical Center. I worked to create a program to help homeless individuals access low barrier employment opportunities. This program became the blueprint for what Sheriff Gonzalez mentioned, Employ to Empower. a Precinct 2 pilot program that is now expanded countywide. Its success caught the eye of the White House, and I was invited to share more information with other leaders across the country about the effectiveness of Employ to Empower. We also work to revitalize communities by turning an abandoned lot into a beautiful pocket park, adding sidewalks so that kids can get to school safely, adding solar lights at parks, and other ways to restore dignity to our communities. And this is what I call revive to thrive, revitalizing communities, not allowing gentrification to be the sole driver of those improvements, so that the people who have lived there all their lives and have advocated for these enhancements can truly begin to enjoy them. These efforts also require a lot of out-of-the-box thinking. And that's why I'm also the only commissioner in Harris County who has funded a pilot project of called ShotSpotter, technology that has allowed us to respond or allowed the sheriff's office to respond much more quickly and efficiently to locations where gunfire has been detected. It has already enabled us to make an incredible number of arrests, but more importantly, it has enabled the sheriff's office to remove many, many firearms from the streets of Harris County in Precinct 2 in particular. And this out-of-the-box thinking, I like to refer to it in my office as WAI, which stands for Wild Blank Ideas. I'll let you fill in the A. But this is a commitment that we're going to be doing things differently here in Precinct 2 and in Harris County. And to be motivated by what's really at stake here, the safety and well-being of our families and our children. Today, I'm honored to introduce a leader who epitomizes what it means to be driven by empathy and love for family. Congresswoman Lucy Macbeth ran for Congress after her son, Jordan, was shot and killed in 2012. While sitting in a car at a gas station, the gunman complained that Jordan and his friends were playing, quote, loud music. She turned her grief into activism, committed to sparing another family from the pain she experienced. The Congresswoman worked for every town and became a spokesperson and volunteer for Moms Demand Action, an organization I truly admire and respect and support. After the mass shooting at a high school at the high school in Parkland, Florida, she ran for Congress. Representative Macbeth represents Georgia's 6th congressional district, but most importantly, she is and remains Jordan's mom. Like myself, she also took office in 2019. Since then, she's fought for bipartisan solutions to end gun violence, make healthcare accessible and affordable, lift up small businesses, and protect our veterans. This summer, the House passed a bill sponsored by Congresswoman Macbeth that would help implement federal red flag laws in hopes of stopping yet another mass shooting. I'm deeply honored to welcome her, the gentle lady from Georgia, to Harris County, and in awe of her work and dedication to end violence. And so I want to just again congratulate her for her success. Just applaud her for turning her anguish into activism and progress. And I just can't say enough about the progress that has been recently made on gun laws, bringing common sense gun safety closer to a true reality. Please help me in joining the Honorable Congresswoman Lucy Macbeth. I'm sorry.
Well, hello, everyone, and I'm so excited to be with you here today. I truly am. My name is Congresswoman Lucy Macbeth. I represent the northern Atlanta suburbs in Georgia. It's truly exciting to be with you today, and thank you to Commissioner Adrian Garcia, as well as Harris County Public Health. Thank you so much for inviting me to be with you today. And I do want to say that I am so excited that this is your inaugural event. I'm just so happy and excited for you and really look forward to all the things that you're going to be doing for the community of Houston in the future. Thank you to the Violence Prevention Conference and all of its organizers for hosting me and for inviting me to simply share my story. I also wanted to thank all of the leaders, as there are very many of you in this room, for this unique conference and the support of forming safer communities for our children and our loved ones and generations to come. Because it's these communities, our communities, that have shaped the people that all of us have grown into. It is these communities that nurture our children, teach them right from wrong, and provide them values to always fight for even when their peers become waylaid or distracted. All of us in this room are here because of the generations that have come before us, and we must continue to usher safe and healthy communities for the generations that are to come after us. Our children are why we are here. And our children are why we must succeed in fighting all forms of violence. My childhood started in Joliet, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago, about 30 minutes outside of Chicago. It started in the heart of the civil rights movement. Yeah, I know I don't look that old, but I am. My father was our town's first and only black dentist, while my mother was a hospital nurse. She taught nursing at the community hospital. By day, they worked to heal the sick and tend to the broken and treat bodies that were battered and bruised. But by night, they were civil rights advocates and activists, fighting to elevate the mind and inspire the freedom of America, fighting to make whole the soul of this nation and rally a community that cried out for justice, justice that had long been deserved, but had also long been denied. My father was the Illinois branch president of the NAACP. I am a life member. And in our household, it was expected that from the moment we could walk, we were marching as well. We marched alongside our parents in the baking summers and the frigid winters, and I often used to joke that the first song I ever learned to sing was "We Shall Overcome," because we were always singing it. And normally when I'm in an audience and we are singing the song, I just kind of look around because I'm usually the only one who knows all of the words. And I learned that we're not to be afraid. That we, when we're fighting for justice, when we're fighting for human and civil rights, we are not to be afraid. And that deep in my heart, I do truly believe that we will overcome. I learned that lesson over many nights that my father presided over our kitchen table, surrounded by a crew of volunteers for NAACP meetings. There'd be lively debates all night long over the hum of Motown on the record player, and I'm sure there are some of you in this room that are old enough to remember record players. Loud bursts of laughter and a thin haze of cigarette smoke drifting through our home almost every single night. The kitchen table was filled with poster board and preparations, with people working excitedly. There was so much energy in my house, pouring their hopes and their dreams into the fight for their future, for their children's future, for the future of our communities. And on non-meeting nights, my father would disappear downstairs in our basement. He was typing and cutting and editing and pasting for hours at a time to assemble the latest issue of The Voice newspaper, which was his monthly NAACP newspaper. And though it was my father who headed the movement, it was my mother who was the backbone that kept it all held together and kept it upright. Our home was more than just a house for my family, but the very heart of the Illinois branch of the NAACP, as my mother so warmly welcomed the entire community with open arms. And on the day after my father would finish The Voice's latest issue, my mother would bundle the newspapers with cord and wire and place the stacks carefully on the front seat of the car. Then she wrapped me and my sister up in our pillows and our blankets and tucked us into the back seat of the car. She settled us on pillows, and we had coloring books. And for those of you that remember Lay's potato chips before they came in all different kinds of variations, there was only one bag. It was a blue and white bag, the really greasy ones. She used to give those to us all the time. But from there, we drove all over the state of Illinois as a family to deliver the newest issue of the Voice newspaper to the community that helped make me who I am. When you live a childhood dedicated to a movement, one that stands up to injustice in our communities, the fight for your community becomes a birthright. Yes, this is definitely my birthright, something that never leaves you, even as the fight takes you to different places over the years. After receiving my undergraduate degree at Virginia State University, and I got a degree in political science, wonder why, my intention was actually to attend law school, but in the unpredictable way that life sometimes carries you, I began working as a flight attendant for Delta Airlines. I flew for 30 years. Nonetheless, for as long as I could remember, I had always dreamed of being a mother because I wanted to emulate what I saw my mother do and be. I witnessed what my mother sacrificed for our family my entire life. She not only mothered my sister and I, but she was a role model and an example to all those that she ever touched. I wanted to replicate that for my own family. And in the summer of 1990, I began planting my roots in Atlanta, Georgia, a city that spurred the movement that my family had tirelessly dedicated itself to. But like so many women in America, I struggled to get pregnant and had many sleepless sessions while reaching this dream that I had of becoming a mother. When I finally gave birth to my son, Jordan, he was truly a miracle for me and my family. I always called him my miracle baby, because after years of trying, I finally had given birth to a healthy baby boy, because I'd begin to think, Lord, okay, well, maybe this is not meant for me, and I will continue to love all my nieces and my nephews and care for them, and I guess that'll just have to be good enough. Because I so badly wanted to be a mother, I had already picked a name for my child. I wanted his name to reflect how thankful I was that God had finally delivered me a child, how he had become the promise that I carried around with me everywhere that I went. Jordan was named after the river in the Bible that God provided safe passage through for his people. And despite my fears of experiencing tragedy again and not being able to bring him fully to term, it was now as if God was carrying me over the currents of fear and into a chapter of life that I had never stopped praying for. So as Jordan grew up, he never failed to remind me how much he was loved, and when I was upset with him, he would always say to me, "Remember, Mommy, you prayed for me. You prayed for me to come to you. You watch and see. I am going to do and be something special." And deep down, Jordan always knew God had a special assignment for him. I really, really believe that. In the discussions that we had before he died, I knew that he knew that God had something special for him. And I knew that too with all of my heart. For a time that I was raising Jordan as a single mother in the heart of the recession. And it was always so much of the sports that he was into, and we were always running around with a full carload of boys in the car. As a single mother, you would have always thought I had 5 or 6 boys because they were always hanging out with us. But I was always looking for affordable opportunities to have fun that didn't break my piggy bank. We frequented the skating rink together where we could get skates for $1. To roll around the rink, we could get a piece of pizza for $1, a Coca-Cola for $1. He was really like my cheap date. And as Jordan grew older, I was always fully aware that as a young black teen, that Jordan would face very unique challenges from the world that we live in. And I did everything that I could in my power to keep him safe. But on Black Friday in 2012, my world was completely shattered. Jordan was out with his friends that Black Friday right after Thanksgiving, the day right after Thanksgiving. And they were simply going shopping, going from one mall to the next. And as all teenage boys do, when they're out with their friends and they want to meet girls at the mall. Jordan said, "Hey guys, if we're going to catch girls, we got to stop at the convenience store and get some chewing gum because we got to have some fresh breath." And so they stopped at a gas station to buy that chewing gum. Within that 3.5 minutes that they were there at the convenience store, a man pulled up next to them in his Volkswagen. He pulled up next to them on the passenger side, and he began antagonizing my son and the boys. He started a verbal altercation with the boys, and with my son in particular. He called Jordan and his friends gangbangers and thugs, and told them to turn down that thug music because he couldn't hear himself think. My son Jordan, as I had taught him to do, diplomatically was basically saying to the man, "We're not bothering you, just roll up the window. We're not doing anything wrong." He basically said, "We're just minding our own business." And he tried to say, "We're not bothering you, just leave us alone." The man then drew a firearm out of his glove box. It was a 9mm Glock. He took a shooter's stance, and he fired 10 rounds into the car. And at that time, as the boys were trying to get out of the line of fire, the driver in the car, in Jordan's car, they were backing out of the line of fire. Well, that man, Michael Dunn, shot 10 rounds into the car and kept on shooting. My son Jordan was hit instantly with 3 bullets. Ballistics shows that Michael Dunn was aiming specifically for Jordan, who was sitting in the passenger side in the rear of the car. And so Michael Dunn hit my son, shot 7 more bullets into the car, And by the time that the boys actually were able to get to safety, my son Jordan was found bleeding in the back seat of the car, and he died instantly. And this man, Michael Dunn, drove off. He went to a hotel that he was in with his girlfriend. They parked the car in the back of the hotel so that no one could see the license plate. They walked their puppy, Charlie. They ordered a pizza. They made a couple of stiff drinks, and they simply went to bed. And that's when I got the phone call. Parents across this country, like me, they know this phone call. It's a sucker punch to your stomach and to your heart and to your soul. It's a phone call that brings you to your knees when the desperation just will simply not let you stand. And it leaves you gasping for air when the agony just simply won't let you breathe. And for days and for months and for years after, you find yourself crying out to God in your grief. Was my child afraid? Did he feel the pain of the bullets as they ripped through his body? Was it quick for him, or did he suffer? Jordan was just only 17 years old. I had dreamed of who he would become. I had dreamed of watching him walk at his high school graduation across the stage, filled with excitement for college or going to the military. He hadn't decided what he wanted to do. But I dreamed of his excitement, having hope for his future and the dreams for the world that only a teenager has. It took our family 2.5 years in multiple trials to get a conviction. My son's killer used the stand your ground law, asserting that somehow my son was a threat to him, that somehow the boys in the car were a threat to him. Yes, he saw young black teens in a car, and they were a threat to him. And after 2.5 years in trial, we became one of the only cases at that time like this in the country that actually did end with a conviction. Now, mind you, Trayvon Martin had been murdered in February of 2012. We came right in on the heels of that in November of 2012. But that was not the end of my fight. It was only just the beginning. On the steps of the courthouse, I made a promise to Jordan and the community that raised him that I would do everything in my power. I promised them that I would spend the rest of my life fighting to keep families across the country from the pain of losing a loved one, that I would do everything in my power to prevent our family's tragedy from reaching any other, that I would do all that I could so that no parent would ever again be forced to join this ever-growing club of gun violence survivors that far too many across this country are now a part of. And in my years of prayers, I have found the strength to forgive my son's killer. He may have taken Jordan's life, but he will never take his legacy. This would not and could never be the end of Jordan's story. Then on Valentine's Day in 2018, I watched in horror again as children who were the same age as my son Jordan came streaming out of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, with their hands up in the air. And you hear the stories, you've heard the stories of these children. Teenagers texting their parents from behind a desk saying things like, "Mom, I love you. I love you, and if I don't make it, I want you to know I thank you for everything that you've done for me." Parents begging their children to barricade themselves behind the doors, to hide in classrooms, and to please hold your tears. Don't make a sound. You cannot make a sound so the gunman hears you. And it was on that day that I knew I had to do more. It was on that day I knew I had a responsibility as a mother who had lost her own child to stand up for every child in this country, to make sure that they're able to live in this country freely without the fear of unnecessary gun violence. So I ran for Congress. And I won despite the loud voices urging me not to run because I was only a mother with no political experience, or I was a black woman running on the issue of gun safety in the red state of Georgia. But no matter what others did to dissuade me, I put my faith first. And I became a mom on a mission to end gun violence in America. And in Congress, we have done the work. Just last month, President Biden signed the Bipartisan Safer Community Act, a bill that I took great responsibility to champion and to pass. And for the first time in 2 decades, Congress has acted to save lives. And we've secured millions of dollars for community violence intervention programs, such as what you are doing today. We've passed background checks for individuals under the age of 21 wanting to purchase assault weapons. And we've passed my legislation, the legislation that I led, red flag legislation. And moreover, for the first time in 20 years, we were able to give money to the CDC to study gun violence as a public health epidemic, the epidemic that it is. When we are discussing these laws, we must put ourselves in the shoes of the parents that have experienced these horrific, violent tragedies, in the shoes of those who have been most affected by the pain that these laws bring, in the shoes of those who have gotten the news that every parent dreads. And we will not stop. I will not stop. Just a few weeks ago, I was able to lead my colleagues in passing legislation in the House to ban weapons of war on our street, assault weapons, by simply sharing my story that is simply engraved into my mother's heart. This is my story. These are my lived experiences. And every one of you in this room, you are all shaped by your own lived experiences, shaped by those people in our lives that we love, that we care for, and those that we look up to. And it's our stories, our collective stories that are so woven together and intertwined, the story of everyday Americans standing up and speaking out for what's right, speaking out and making sure that there are no more generations of heartbreak. The blood and sweat and heartbreak of generations is etched into the very furrow of this nation's brow. And the triumphs and tribulations of that journey are here, right here, sitting with us in this very room. Because our story, it's the story of this nation. Every one of us in this room has a story. And while the arc of our story may be long, it always bends towards justice and freedom. But I must be honest. Without works, faith is dead. Without effort, the way forward is uncertain. Without courage and leadership, the path towards progress will definitely veer off course. It's up to us. It is up to all of us to put in the work. It's up to us to use our voices, our intellect, and our power to support our cause and to insist that the movement for safer communities, to raise our future generations, does not dim or flicker. You have the power to change hearts and minds in America. You're already doing the work. You have the power to work within your communities where anxiety of violence looms over our families. You have the power to share your stories, our stories, about the challenges that communities have faced, the obstacles that we've all overcome, and the unique experiences that have shaped each and every one of us in this room. So when state government passed dangerous gun laws that endanger our neighborhoods, you fight them. When our leaders need to be shown the truth about the violence that ravages entire regions, you show them. And when our peers, who we will meet as we leave this conference to continue our good work, when they grow intimidated at the scale of this fight, support, nurture, gird, and encourage them. Most importantly, when you have the power to protect American communities from senseless violence, you've got to use it. Because the fight is about more than simply numbers and statistics. It's about high school kids who want to safely play soccer after school at their local parks. It's about parents who teach their children how to form and invest in healthy relationships. It's about the neighbors who check in to make sure that things are okay with you during the rough times. It's about the communities that we've built and the people right here in this room and our families at home. This is about us. In closing, I'd love to quote to you one of America's great black female civil rights activists, Audre Lorde, who once said, "When I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid." Thank you for your struggle.
Good morning. Okay, y'all can do better than that. Good morning. Good morning. I'd first like to just ask you all to give another round of applause for Congresswoman Macbeth. Thank you so much. What a powerful and inspirational message for all of us here today on day 2 of our inaugural Violence Prevention Conference. I was deeply touched and moved by her story. As I listened to her speak, I was thinking about her roots in community activism coming up in the NAACP with her family, and the importance of grassroots activism all the way till now, where she's now involved in trying to develop and shape national policy to prevent violence in our communities. We need both of them. And thinking about her son, Jordan, and the power of that name and inspiring her work to move forward violence prevention efforts within our nation and in our communities. So please, again, give her another round of applause. I'd like to thank Commissioner Garcia for joining us today. He's done some incredible work and has been an incredible thought leader in thinking about the underlying issues that cause violence in our communities and focusing resources, interventions, and strategies to address them, not just as the county sheriff, not just as a council member, but now as our commissioner for Precinct 2. And so please give him a round of applause as well. Thank him for his leadership and efforts. And lastly, aren't we blessed to have a sheriff that understands that there is a need for a holistic approach to addressing violence in our community? There are so many communities across the country that not only struggle to get resources and strategies, but they're not working in partnership with law enforcement because there's not that understanding that the root causes of violence, that quite frankly, the work that we do as the safety net system has an impact on violence in our communities. And so I'm so grateful for your leadership, Sheriff Gonzalez, in recognizing the importance of our partnerships together. So thank you. Please give a round of applause for Sheriff Gonzalez. So day 2, I am so excited for our breakout sessions, for our lunch keynote speaker with former NAACP President Ben Jealous. Today we're focusing on looking at the various models and interventions that are available in our communities to help support our youth in advancing strategies, coping strategies, and solutions that will enable them to be effective and productive members of our society. I have an African proverb that I absolutely love that I believe reflects the work that we should be doing as the government, agencies, community-based organizations, and the safety net system overall. It says, when spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. And if you can visualize what that spider web looks like, it has holes, it has gaps, it's unfinished. That is what the safety net system that has been designed to support our communities is left with. However, we can continue that fight from a policy perspective to bring resources to strengthen our safety net, but we can also unite them and create some incredible outcomes for vulnerable populations and communities. So I encourage all of you today, as you engage in our sessions, to think about how you're going to unite your spider webs with the community organizations, government, and other stakeholders and practitioners in the room today to end violence in our communities. Looking forward to a closing out by Dr. Chico Tillman today. What an incredible leader. He has been working with Harris County Public Health to implement our violence prevention programming, and I am eager and excited for him to get us fired up this evening as we close out our conference. So I look forward to engaging all of you all today. Thank you. And with that, you all are adjourned to go to our breakout session. Sorry about that.